The unexpected alarm. The airport was alive with its usual symphony of sounds, rolling suitcases, hurried footsteps, and the ever-present voice of the announcer echoing through the terminals. Passengers rushed between gates, checking their watches, balancing coffee cups, and pulling their luggage behind them. For most, it was just another busy day at JFK International Airport. But for Officer Tom Reynolds, this wasn't just another routine shift. Tom had been working in the K-9 unit for 6 years, and in that time, he had seen just about everything. Suspicious packages, frantic travelers trying to smuggle in illegal items, and even the occasional lost pet sneaking onto the luggage belt. But nothing could have prepared him for what was about to happen. Beside him, walking in perfect sync, was Gunnar, his Belgian Malinois, a highly trained police dog known for his sharp instincts and unshakable focus. Gunnar had been with Tom since he was just a pup, and together they had built a bond that went beyond simple police work. Tom trusted Gunnar's instincts more than he trusted his own. If Gunnar alerted on something, it wasn't just a hunch. It was something real. As they patrolled the baggage claim area, Tom felt the leash in his hand suddenly go taut. Gunnar stopped abruptly, his entire body stiffening. His nose pointed toward a seemingly ordinary navy blue suitcase sitting by the carousel. Tom frowned. The suitcase wasn't moving, wasn't being claimed. It looked like just another piece of forgotten luggage, but Gunnar didn't think so. Then the barking started. A deep, sharp, urgent bark, the kind that made every officer in the area stop and turn. Gunnar wasn't just alerting. He was desperate. He lowered his body, his muscles coiled as if ready to pounce, his eyes locked on the suitcase. His paws scratched at the floor, his tail stiff, his ears pressed forward. Tom felt his stomach drop. Gunnar had never reacted like this before. Passengers around them took notice. Some backed away, gripping their luggage a little tighter, while others exchanged nervous glances. Everyone stepped back. Tom called out, his voice firm and commanding. His radio was already in his hand. "We've got an alert. Possible hazardous package. Requesting backup at baggage claim C." His pulse quickened. If this was an explosive device, they had seconds to evacuate the area. 2 TSA officers rushed forward, gesturing for the nearest passengers to move away from the carousel. Security personnel closed off the surrounding area with retractable belts, pushing the crowd farther back. Yet, Gunnar's barking didn't stop. Tom knew this bark. This wasn't how Gunnar reacted to bombs. This wasn't how Gunnar reacted to drugs. This was something else. He crouched down beside Gunnar, pressing a gloved hand to his back in an attempt to calm him. "Easy, buddy. I hear you." His own heartbeat thundered in his ears. He glanced up at the bag. It was worn down, as if it had been handled too many times. The zipper was slightly frayed at the edges. There were scuff marks along the sides, as if it had been dragged rather than carried. Something wasn't right. Then, the faintest sound reached his ears. Tom's breath hitched. It was small, barely a whisper beneath the noise of the airport, but it was there, a whimper. A soft, weak, desperate little cry from inside the suitcase. Tom's jaw tightened. This wasn't a bomb. This wasn't drugs. This was something alive. "Backup is en route," one of the TSA officers confirmed. "What are we dealing with?" Tom didn't answer right away. Instead, he carefully reached for the zipper. His hands were steady, but inside, 1,000 thoughts raced through his mind. What could be inside? A trapped animal, an injured person, something far worse. Slowly, inch by inch, he unzipped the suitcase. The moment the zipper slid open, a rush of foul, damp air hit him in the face. The smell of filth, neglect, and decay made his stomach twist. And then he saw it. A tiny, trembling body, curled up in the farthest corner of the suitcase, hiding beneath a pile of filthy, damp rags. A puppy. A German Shepherd puppy, no older than 3 months, shivering, barely breathing. His fur was matted with dirt, his ribs jutting out, and his tiny, swollen eyes struggled to stay open. For a moment, the entire room seemed to freeze. Even the officers went silent. Gunnar immediately stopped barking. His ears drooped, and he let out a soft, heart-wrenching whimper. He stepped closer, lowering his head to the suitcase, as if sensing the fragile life inside. Tom's hands shook as he gently reached inside, lifting the tiny puppy into his arms. The pup let out a weak, pitiful cry, its frail body limp against Tom's uniform. Tom swallowed hard. How long had this poor thing been trapped inside? How long had it suffered alone, abandoned, left to die? His gaze flickered towards something else in the suitcase, a small, crumpled piece of paper, stuffed into the corner. With trembling fingers, he unfolded it. The writing was hastily scribbled, uneven, desperate. "If you found this, please take care of him. I had no choice." Tom exhaled sharply, his chest tightening. He had seen a lot of things in his career. But this broke him. Officer Reynolds. One of the TSA officers stepped forward, breaking Tom from his thoughts. "Sir, we've got a woman, late 20s, watching from the other side of the room. She saw you open the suitcase and started crying. The moment you picked up the dog, she turned and walked away. Fast." Tom's eyes snapped up. "Where?" His voice was sharper than he intended. "Heading toward Terminal B, near the exit." Tom didn't hesitate. "Stop her. Now." The officers took off, pushing through the crowd as the woman quickened her pace. Tom stayed behind for a moment, cradling the tiny, trembling puppy against his chest. The little shepherd pup barely had the strength to lift its head, but its nose twitched as it burrowed into Tom's jacket, seeking warmth, seeking comfort, seeking safety for the first time in its life. Gunnar leaned in, sniffing the pup gently before nudging Tom's arm with his nose, as if saying, "We need to help him." Tom set his jaw. No, they weren't just helping this puppy. They were going to find out who did this, and they were going to make sure it never happened again. The truth uncovered. The airport lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows across the polished floors as Officer Tom Reynolds bolted after the woman. His pulse pounded in his ears, his grip tightening on his radio as he signaled to the officers ahead. "Stop that woman. Terminal B, near the exit." A security officer up ahead caught sight of her and stepped into her path. The woman skidded to a halt, her chest rising and falling as if she'd been holding her breath the whole time. Tom slowed as he approached, locking eyes with her. Tears streamed down her face. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I didn't have a choice." Tom studied her, taking in her disheveled appearance, the dark circles under her eyes, the way her hands shook as she clutched her purse. She wasn't trying to run. She was breaking down. "You left the note in that suitcase," Tom said, his voice firm but not unkind. "You knew what was inside." She nodded, swallowing hard. "I couldn't just leave him there. I couldn't let them dispose of him like the others." Tom's stomach clenched. "The others? Start talking," he said, softer now. She took a shaky breath, wiping her face as if trying to compose herself. "I worked for them, for the kennel. At first, I thought it was a real adoption center, but it's not. It's a front." Her voice cracked. "They breed dogs in horrible conditions. If the puppies are sick or too weak, they get rid of them like trash. I wanted to stop them, but I didn't know who to turn to." She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "I tried to save him, but they were watching me. So I did the only thing I could think of. I put him in that suitcase, hoping someone, anyone, would find him before it was too late." Tom glanced down at the trembling puppy still nestled against his chest, Gunnar standing protectively by his side. The thought of other dogs suffering in silence made his jaw tighten. "Where is this kennel?" he asked. The woman hesitated for only a moment. Then, in a whisper, she gave him the address. A warehouse of secrets. By the time Tom and his team arrived at the location, a worn-down warehouse on the outskirts of the city, it was well past midnight. The air was thick with tension, the headlights of the police vehicles casting eerie shadows on the metal siding. Tom stepped out of his SUV, Gunner at his side, his tail low but alert. The dog sensed something. A team of officers moved in formation toward the entrance. The door was slightly ajar. Tom exchanged a look with his partner, Agent Davis. "We go in silent," Davis murmured. With a swift motion, they pushed the door open, stepping inside. The smell hit them first. It was thick, pungent, the scent of neglect, filth, and fear. Tom's eyes adjusted to the dim light. Rows of metal cages lined the warehouse walls, each one containing a pair of frightened, malnourished dogs. Some were too weak to move, their ribs protruding through their fur. Others whimpered softly, curling up against the bars. Gunner let out a low, deep growl. Tom's chest tightened with anger. A few officers moved ahead, checking the back rooms. Tom focused on the nearest cage, where a small Labrador puppy barely lifted its head at their arrival. "You're safe now," Tom whispered. And then, footsteps. A man in stained overalls burst from one of the back rooms, his face twisting in alarm. But before he could make it 2 steps, Gunner lunged. The police dog was faster than any officer in the room. In seconds, he had the man pinned to the ground, a deep snarl rumbling in his throat. "Get him off me," the man shrieked, panic in his eyes. Tom crouched down, his face cold and unreadable. "Where are the others?" The man stammered, looking around as if searching for an escape. "There's no way out of this," Tom said. "You either talk now, or we find out ourselves, and make sure you're held responsible for every single dog here." The man swallowed hard. He knew he was caught. "They're in the back," he muttered. A new beginning. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Officers rushed to free the dogs, carrying them out into the fresh air. Veterinarians and animal rescue teams arrived, tending to the most malnourished ones first. Tom barely registered the chaos around him. He was focused on one thing. The little German Shepherd puppy, the one who had been left in the suitcase, was now nestled in a warm blanket, finally safe. Gunner sat beside him, watching him protectively. "You're gonna be okay, buddy," Tom murmured, running a gentle hand over the pup's small head. "No more cages. No more fear." Davis walked up beside him, exhaling. "We shut them down, Tom. And the people behind this. They're going away for a long time." Tom nodded. Justice had been served. But more than that, lives had been saved. And then, the softest sound broke through the night. A tiny, exhausted whimper. Tom looked down and saw the little puppy nuzzling closer to him, his body still weak, but his tail, just barely, wagging. For the first time, Tom smiled. Gunner let out a soft huff, pressing his nose against the pup's tiny paw. It was over. The puppy had a second chance, and this time, he was finally home. This concludes the story. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, please consider liking the video and sharing it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell for more captivating stories. Have a great day.